Next up is Kyler from Armstrong Nursery, going to teach us about landscaping. Kyler.
Here. Thank you. So my name's Kyler. I've been working with Armstrongs or for Armstrongs for 9 years, which is a nursery. I'm a CCNP, which just means a California Certified Nursery Professional, someone that's taken certain tests that we need to be qualified to get that. So I wanted to talk about fire escaping plants and also drought tolerant plants, since we are in a drought now. One of the greatest impacts a homeowner can have to safely create and maintain fire resistant landscape is to plan ahead and then use consistent maintenance. So when you plant something, you have to take care of it. You can't just plant it and leave it there. So let's use this as an example. This is a Romnea coulteri, or a Matilla hot poppy, which is a native plant. Right now, they are starting to grow. In the fall and winter, they will actually die back down to the ground, but they leave all of the leaves up at the top that then become fuel for fire. So it is important to do maintenance and prune those up, keep them clean. No plant is fireproof. There are plants that are better resistant to fire and less likely to burn or spread. But if anything gets hot enough temperature wise, it will burn. So also with the water wise portion of that, when you are planting a plant, it's, even though this is a very drought tolerant plant and doesn't need much water, that's once it's established. It takes a whole year for a drought resistant plant or any kind of plant to become established. With that, you're going to change the amount of water that you're going to be giving them every about 3 to 4 times a year with the changes of the seasons. So right now with the heat that we're having, it's 95 degrees today, you're going to have to water things more often than when we get into the fall and winter, when we're having shorter, cooler days. The plants are having their rest period. They're using less water then. So a lot of people have a drip system or sprinklers that are set to twice a week throughout the whole year. So during the summertime, we'll see things that did not get quite enough water. And then during the fall and winter, we'll see things that got overwatered. With that, the best thing to do is to soak the soil really well around the base of the plant, avoiding getting water on the plant itself. And then giving it enough time, the plant enough time to use the water that is there in the soil. Kind of like us, we can't just keep drinking water, even if we're not thirsty, we're going to drink more water when it's hot out versus when it's cool, just like plants. Going back to the fire resistant plants, there are different zones that should be planted depending on where your house is at. So zone 1 is think of the first 30 feet of your house as the garden zone. That's according to the Western Sunset Garden book. If you're seeking a maximum fire protection, areas close to your house, 5 feet or out, should emphasize hardscaping, so avoiding planting things in pots or things that are right up against your house. If you do, then plant small sized perennials that are more fire resistant or have a lot of moisture to the leaves, so that if you do have an ember that lands on that plant, it will hopefully fizzle out and not start a fire. From there, continuing the pass from the patio to other hardscaping, as you get further away from the house, then you can start to plant some larger plants. Zone 1 is the first 30 feet. Zone 2 is from 30 to what I read was 170 feet. So I saw two different things. I think that Brian could probably clarify which one of those would be better. So that section you should still use smaller sized perennials. Outside of that 100 feet or more, then you can start to use some of the larger shrubs. So some of the steps that you can take to prevent fires to reach your house is to immediately remove any dead or diseased or dying trees or shrubs. So when something starts to die, brown out, there's a lot more fuel. There's no moisture in the plant anymore. Extremely flammable trees and shrubs should be replaced, even if they've adapted to require little water. So something like eucalyptus that has a lot of oil in its leaves and stems, they just go up, they'll just burn because of all that oil. So if you replace that with something that's more, that doesn't have that oil, or that's maybe even a native like an oak tree, they're less likely to burn. So keep brush and dried grass removed from the perimeter of your property to almost have a fire break. Keep trees and shrubs thinned out. Dense brush leads to dead debris buildup, which means more fuel. Keep irrigations in working order. So if that means adjusting them for the water that the plant needs. So during the summer a little bit more, during the fall a little bit less, then you won't have as many plants that might fail in your garden unless they're plants. Eliminate any large overhanging branches from driveways or that are near houses. If they're going over driveways, then they can restrict emergency services from getting to where they need to go. And then some of the other things that go in with the maintenance of the plants is that you should feed them with organic fertilizers. So with organic fertilizers, it's like this, it's down to earth, just a little starter fertilizer. It slowly releases nutrients to the plant, which it will slowly grow instead of using something that's synthetic, which will give it to the plant and it'll grow like crazy. It'll act like coffee, gets us going, it'll get the plants going. But then there's a lot of new growth that is harder on the plant and will actually stress the plant out. And if you stop giving that plant that synthetic fertilizer, it's kind of like us when we don't get our coffee, then we're not going to be too happy. The organic fertilizer just slowly releases over time and slowly becomes usable to the plant. Also just check for diseases or pests that might be on the plant and keep it from stressing it, less die off. And keeping your garden free of weeds. With lawns, a lot of us were told this last month to stop watering our lawns due to the water restrictions, at least here in Thousand Oaks, to just let your lawn die out. So if you've done that, then it's important to remove as much of that dead lawn as you can so that there's not all this dead thatch that a member can start very easily. So you can either do that by actually removing what is there, or if you can, just cut it with the lawnmower as low as you can. Just remove as much of that thatch and dead grass as possible. And then again, keeping your roofs and gutters free of dead leaves and debris.
So I have a question. So if you let the grass die and then you want to get rid of the grass, does bark also burn if you put bark down?
It does. It just bark and mulch will burn.
You can't put bark. Okay.
No. So things like rock or DG. I mean, you can use a little low growing ground cover, something like ice plant is very fire resistant. It's got a lot of moisture to it. And then again, as long as it's maintained over time, they can kind of build up that thatch that's underneath. So every couple of years, you do actually have to go back and really trim it and remove a good part of it back. It'll look bad for a time, but it will regrow and it can save your house.
And that's called thatch.
Thatch, yeah, that's specifically usually for grass or in lawns, but really anything that's down below underneath your plants is thatch or just fuel.
And there are some trees, like I'm an avocado grower,
Mhm.
and they tell us to keep the dead leaves
Mhm.
underneath the tree.
Yeah,
Is that like
so
not good?
the plants do like that. That's going to benefit the plant, but
Yeah.
it's not best practice when it comes to fire safety and fire
Okay.
prevention. Some of the things that you can do to kind of help with the water perforating into the soil and almost keep it more moist is to use certain products like gypsum, which is a product that loosens clay soils. It helps with water perforation into the soil. And then there are also certain granules that you can put down that basically hold moisture, hold water around the plants themselves, and some other products that can actually mix with water when you water the plant, and it helps keep moisture in that soil. You can also plant a ground cover that's underneath there, like ice plant will something that takes similar water. So ice plant's almost like a cactus or succulent. You water it really well, you soak it, and then you give it enough time to dry out, just like a avocado would like watering. So it's important to plant things that like similar water requirements together. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is with the drought tolerant plants is that a lot of people will want drought tolerant plants, but they think of them as not looking nice. There are a lot of drought tolerant plants that have a lot of flowers. Kind of like this one that I brought in is a Coreopsis, a very drought tolerant plant once it's established after that first year. But it's flowering almost all year. The other one that something else that's really nice that's fire resistant is lantana. Gets lots of bright flowers, different colored flowers, reds, yellows, whites, purples. That does start to build up over time, so it's important to really cut it back after a couple of years to remove all that dead stuff that's starting to grow underneath it. When you're redesigning your house, or if you're redesigning your lawn, or sorry, your yard, it's usually best to, if you're completely removing everything, it's best to start with larger trees or shrubs first, and then go down and move to smaller plants. So if you want to put trees in, start with the trees, then start with the smaller size shrubs. And then if you're going to do any annuals or perennials, that's just one of the best practices for redesigning. It's easiest to start with the largest, go to the smallest.
Doesn't Armstrong offer like landscape
Yeah.
design?
So we do have a landscape design service with Armstrong's. Yeah, it's a $499 service. Our landscape designer will go out there, walk the yard with you, talk about your ideas and your goals for the project. A lot of people right now are wanting to plant drought tolerant or firescape landscapes, which if you let him know at that time, or her, they can draw up a design off-site based off of your wants and desires for your yard. You can meet with them in the stores to kind of see some of the stuff that they were suggesting. If you wanted us to go ahead and complete that plan, we work with certain certified contractors that have business licenses, they're insured to actually execute the plan. And if your purchase of plants and materials is more than $3,000, then you get that $499 put towards that. All of our trees and shrubs with Armstrongs, they have a lifetime guarantee. So if you get a tree or shrub from us and it dies, if it ever dies, you can bring back the dead plant and get a store credit for it. You just need to either hold on to your receipt, or if you create an account, a free account with us, then we'll have all of your purchases under that. Our planting from our contractors is also guaranteed for a year. So if in that first year a plant dies, we'll replace the plant and send them out to replant it.
So is there a certain kind of sod, if you wanted to resod, that takes less water?
There are certain sods and grasses that do take less water. St. Augustine is a warm season grass, so that means that it grows during the warm season, summertime. And it is more drought tolerant than a traditional tall fescue lawn. The other one, I actually have a St. Augustine, a variegated St. Augustine lawn, that's been not quite established. It was planted about 9 months ago. I get away with, well, it's small, so I get away with watering it about once every 10 days. But again, good deep soakings. I use plenty of gypsum, product called Easy Wet that helps water retain into the soil. And about every 10 days is when I water it.
That's great. Awesome.
The other one is, and it does stay green most of the year. The other one that is very drought tolerant is called UC Verde buffalo grass. It is sold usually as plugs. You plant a plug at 1 foot on center, and it'll grow and fill out over time. That one I don't recommend as much, even though it's a little bit more drought tolerant than St. Augustine, just because it does really turn brown during the fall and winter. Were there any other questions, comments?
I'm happy that you provided all the list of the fire resistant plants to avoid and the ones
Yeah.
that you should get. That's really helpful.
Yeah, there's many more. That's just kind of one of a list of some more common ones that might be in this area.
Awesome.
That's great. And you have one of the most pretty nurseries in the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys do a great job.
Yeah.
And you're very
We try-
helpful too.
Try to keep it looking as
You
nice
really
as we
do.
can.
You guys really do. You're doing a great
Yeah.
job. And your people are streaming all,
Yeah.
I really, you guys really.
Trying to shoot for all of our sales associates to become California Certified Nursery Professionals. I think there's only 2 or 3 of them there that still have not gotten it, but almost everyone else there
You guys are really good.
has. Yeah, there's a lot of experienced people there.
Right.
Thank you very much.
That was great information. I'm sure thankful to learn about that stuff. Now I know how to clean up my yard, get rid of the debris and the dead grass and trees and shrubs.